bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place.
Ready?
This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go. Go.
And good morning, Birds fans. We put Halloween in the rearview mirror, the first half of the season as well, and the trade deadline. And Johnny Mack, I got to tell you, even though the Eagles didn't do anything yesterday at the trade deadline, Howie Roseman, not mad at you. I'm sure that he made many a call and had some conversations, but if there wasn't a deal on the table that he believed made the Eagles better short term and didn't hurt them in the long term, he didn't pull the trigger on it. I'm not all that upset. I was on WIP last night, took a couple calls. Oh, how are you supposed to be the biggest trader?
That's amazing.
You get on his case because he's not making deals. I didn't buy it. He made his big deal prior to in getting Kevin Byard. And even though some pretty good names did jump around the National Football League, can we play the Commanders now that they don't have their true defensive
the Eagles,
pass rushing specialists?
The Eagles, I mean, I joked before we came on talking to Zander. I'm like, Howie's got to get his timing better. You know, if you get Kevin Byard on the deadline, everybody's thrilled. But it comes a little bit earlier. And by the way, you get the startup costs at least out of the way a little bit. He's already on the field. That's their splash. And that's a pretty big splash, because it didn't happen on the day you wanted to happen to. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. Or to some people, evidently it does. But, I mean, look, a lot of these rumors are bull, what to begin with, but and they're agent driven and all that kind of stuff. Then there's bits. I mean, the Eagles don't need defensive front people, and the biggest names to go were defensive front people. So I get the people. There was a weird edge rusher rumor about the Eagles late in the process, and I'm like, where's what? I mean, they may, if anything, they got to find more snaps for Nolan Smith, who they drafted in the first round, I believe, Jody.
Oh, yes.
Check my notes. That's a first round pick. They're not going to give up on him and bring in Chase Young after 8 games. That's not how this works. A lot of it is just goofy. Now, the one player I think there was some legitimate interest in, but again, it was more agent driven than anything else, and that's Jalen Johnson in Chicago. He's a very good young corner, and that was just about talent. But again, Howie wants a deal, and they wanted a second round pick, and the Eagles have 2 second round picks. They have their own pick. And remember, their second round pick isn't as good as, say, Chicago's second round pick to get Montez Sweat. That's essentially a bridge first round pick. That might be the 33rd pick in the draft. The Eagles' second round pick might be 64. There's a big difference. So their second round pick, number one, isn't as valuable as typically other people. Now they have the Saints pick as well because Mickey Loomis is Mickey Loomis. But they didn't want to give up a second round pick. And then you start talking about third round picks, same thing, their pick. And they don't even have a third. They have a compensatory third round pick coming, but you can't trade that.
You can't trade it because they don't officially have it yet.
So it just wasn't a fit. And obviously, you know, and you move on, you turn the page. And you know, Buffalo probably had the most interest, and they had to turn the page because they didn't want to give up a second round pick, and they went after Rasul Douglas, their old buddy, and they got him. So, yeah.
I was going to ask you about Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas is a much improved player from the time he was here in Philadelphia. I remember watching Rasul in Green, and he was a boomer bust type player. He would make good plays. He would. He's a guy who could get you an INT every once in a while, which has not been a strength of this Eagle team this year. They don't have very many INTs, and the one that they got this week was kind of a gift. As great a game as Sam Howell played, he just airmailed that ball and threw it right to Reed Blankenship. It wasn't like Reed made some great athletic play on it. He kind of threw it right to him. So that has been one thing that has been lacking is they haven't got the other team to turn the ball over. They don't have guys to get INTs. Rasul Douglas was that even when he was here in Philadelphia. Now, it would be balanced by the fact that he'd bite on a double move and get burned for touchdowns, and everyone would remember those plays and forget his INTs. But he's a pretty good player, has been since he left here in Philadelphia. They gave up a third-round pick to get him, but they got Rasul and a fifth back. So it's not really a third. It's the difference between a third and fifth for Rasul Douglas. You don't think he would have been a fit with the Eagles? Or do you think the price was too high?
Well, I think they gave up a fifth and got back a third. That's a little bit too high. Rasul, remember, he had great number. Even here, he had really good ball skills. He just, had natural nose for the football, but it took him a while when he left Philadelphia. I mean, he was with a bunch of teams. I'd have to look up how many teams before he landed in Green Bay, and they sort of got him going in the right direction again. And, interesting, they put him in the slot. So it's, maybe more people are looking at bigger bodies in the slot because I know Green Bay used them there quite a bit.
And if there's one position the Eagles have been like searching for an answer more than any other from the time their slot corner got hurt very early in the season, it's been the slot, Johnny Mack. And that's where Rasul Douglas plays.
But I don't think he's a slot corner. I still don't think he's a slot corner. And the Eagles got a bunch of guys like that they can throw in the slot, and they have been throwing in the slot, bigger body guys. So, and they have Bradley Roby coming. I think everybody forgets that Bradley Roby's here, and he didn't put him on injured reserve, so he's going to be back, and we'll see. They're having a walkthrough today. We'll get the estimation.
Yeah, he's missed 2 in a row, right?
Yeah. So
if he doesn't play again this week, it'll be a question as to whether they should have put him on here.
Yeah, exactly. So my guess is he's going to be back at practice somewhat. We'll see how the week progresses. Unless they screwed up the diagnosis, and they don't want to do that. But he's going to be back either way, whether it's this week, next week, even if it does take 4 games, he's going to be back. And ultimately, he's going to be the slot corner. And I think everybody forgets he's here because he was here for such a short period of time. And I think he's more of a natural slot corner. And I think he has something left. We'll see if they're right or they're wrong. But I do think you saw it in Los Angeles for a very brief period. And remember, that was his first game off the street against pretty good slot receiver. And he settled things down a little bit. Wasn't perfect, but he settled things down. And I think he'll do the same thing when he comes back. He knows how to play. Probably not as, athletic as he once was, but the Eagles play a ton of zone coverage, so you can kind of mask that a little bit. And I think ultimately when he gets back out there, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. But the question is, the guys stay healthy. But that's every team.
Right.
I mean, that's what I got with the Chase Young stuff. It's like Reddick and Sweat. I got this criticism of the Eagles. Reddick and Sweat are playing too many snaps. It's just not how it works. Do you think Chase Young, the first thing, and by the way, this isn't fair. Washington threw him under the bus as soon as they trade him. He's freelancing. He's undisciplined. He doesn't do what he's told. Maybe some of that's true. Maybe some of it isn't true. But, that always gives me a sour taste when people do that after they trade somebody. Either way, you really think he's going to be happy getting 20 snaps a game? People, Josh McDaniels got fired last night for people waking up and don't know, and Dave Ziegler got fired, which is kind of meaningless middle of the season, but he's a disaster as he was the first time. The most important part of all of this is managing people, coaching. Managing people more than X's and O's. I say it all the time. If you're hiring, I'm not the first one. I'm the 97th one, 9,000,007th one around this league. If you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. You can't just plug the 53. How many times have I said that, Jody? You can't just get the 53 best players and say, oh, Chase Young is better than Brandon Graham at this stage of his career. Go get Chase Young. Go get Chase Young. You could do that in Madden. Can't do that in the NFL. So is Chase Young better than Brandon Graham at this point? Yes. Is Montez Sweat better than Brandon Graham at this point? Yes. Do you want to give up a first-round pick for Montez Sweat? Because guess what? Your second-round pick ain't as good as Chicago's. So you got to go above that.
Right.
With Chase Young, you don't even have a third-round pick, and even if you did, it wouldn't. You'll eventually get one with the comp pick, but you can't use it right now. So what are you going to do? You're going to go up to the second round and give them a second-round pick? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I didn't think there was any chance they were making a trade for a defensive end. Two big ones moved. We won't have to face them this year, but they were already done with the Commanders. That's just one of those quirks.
Well, they got to face Chase Young again. So
right, because San Francisco's yet to come, but that's out of Howie Roseman's hands. There's nothing he can do about that, and the Eagle coaching staff, of course. Yeah, no, the only positions that I thought the Eagles may be able to get something done would be linebacker, where they almost never put assets in. I thought the Zaire Franklin rumor that I heard yesterday was interesting because a former Philly guy had gotten into the scuffle with the Eagle players back in camp. You were there that day. A good aggressive player who I thought could have upgraded the linebackers. Don't know what the asking price was. He didn't get dealt anyway. But he had signed a contract extension for only 3 years and $10 million. So that fits the Eagle mode. Don't want to overpay linebackers. And he was a reasonably priced linebacker. I thought that was a chance. And I thought slot corner was a chance. They didn't get him. If they talked, they didn't get the job done. I don't think it's reason for panic. I don't think it's reason to hold Howie Roseman accountable, because how does he not come away with one of the it wasn't that great an upgrade. Like, I would like to see Rasul Douglas come back. I'm of the mindset, hey, if he's been doing it good again, this is just maybe I'm different than you and different than others. I don't give a flying fart what it says when they measure you out. If you're 5'10" or if you're 6'1". If you can play the position, you can play the position. I'm not going to not acquire you and not believe that you can't play it because, oh my God, he's 6'1". You can't have a 6'1" guy playing corner. Yeah, you can if he can play it. And Rasul Douglas has proven to me the last couple of years he can flat out play it. So if they've been able to get Rasul Douglas and bring him back, I know that they liked Roby. How many snaps did Roby play in the Rams game? Like 40? Not even?
No.
He didn't play half a game.
Yeah.
So you're hanging your hat on the fact that, hey, He looked real good for 20 some odd snaps before, shockingly, a guy who's had an injury history got injured, missed 2 games. That's a little thin ice that they're walking on. Now, hopefully it doesn't go out from underneath them, but those are the only 2 places. Anybody else who, how do you not get a star player who gets available? Because you're right, John. He doesn't fit here. It doesn't mean he's not a great player. It doesn't mean he's not going to go somewhere else and be really good. He wasn't going to come in here and be happy with his role, and they weren't going to be able to give him what he wanted to. So, yeah, please let the star-chasing Howie Roseman didn't get the job done line of thinking without putting it in the proper context of adding him to the present-day Philadelphia Eagles. Don't go down that road because it's just going to make you look stupid.
Yeah, you're right. Well, the star, obviously, you're 100% right on that. But even role players like Zaire Franklin, I'll use him as an example. The Billy stories are great, especially when it works. And, Hassan Reddick, it works. And the St. Joe's prep guys, and it's working with Swift. And it's always an extra little punctuation. Oh, he's coming home. And
Kevin Byard, we're only 1 week removed.
Oh, yeah, Byard.
We bring back Philly guys, Kevin Byard.
Kevin as well. We'll see how that works out. But what they need is a coverage linebacker, and Zaire is not a coverage linebacker. He's a downhill linebacker. He's a really good one. They already got one of those. If you look at the Washington game, Nakobe Dean was great against the run. Was great, and he was awful in pass coverage. And we need to get somewhere in between there. Just be really good against the run and good in pass coverage. I think that's what they need. They need a pass coverage linebacker, and that's not Zaire Franklin. Rasul Douglas, they already got 6'2" slot corners. They love Eli Ricks.
6'2", John. What is the difference? If a guy can play the position, has Rasul Douglas in the last 2 years not proven that he can play in the slot? Yeah, but why do you think that you would evaluate him differently because he's 6'2" rather than 5'11"?
Well, it's not me evaluating him; it's the NFL.
NFL, you just said it, so I'm assuming it's your evaluation.
Well, yeah, I don't think long term, 6'2" guys are good in the slot. I said the same thing with Bradbury. I mean, they could stick Bradbury in the slot and get Jalen Johnson and do it that way.
So you think the
Bradbury's a much
there the
better
last
player.
2 years when he's been productive and played well for him was actually a mistake.
There is short area quickness issues with long and lengthy guys, which is the reason the NFL does business the way they do business, because so many of the slot receivers and Cooper Kupp's at the top, but he's not the only one. There's far more slot receivers that are option route guys that are short, that are quick, the Julian Edelman types, the Wes Welker types, the Cooper Kupp types. Those are the guys that dominate in the slot. And big, long guys, they're made to deal with the Mike Evanses of the world, not those guys. And when you hit those guys, now also Green Bay, I think a lot of people don't realize, everybody doesn't use the same scheme. So Green Bay, when they threw him in there, and they threw him in there out of desperation to begin with, they modified their scheme to sort of mask some of those deficiencies a big, long corner has. He's done a nice job. I'm not saying he's done a nice job. I'm saying long-term, the Eagles don't want that in the slot. Sean Desai already proved he'd do it. He continues to do it with Eli Ricks. He tried it with James Bradburn. They're like, we got to get the hell out of this, and we got to get to where James is most effective. I think Rasul Douglas would be a great fit for this defense at outside corner because he's got tremendous ball skills. He's a tremendous zone corner. And I always thought, you know what? If he could have hung on past Jim Schwartz to Jonathan Gannon, he would have been a great fit. Outside, not inside. And because he's great looking at the quarterback. He's great. He's got great ball skills. As we got a West Virginia guy, he'll like that. Mike Gill in the green room. I think he'd be a good fit, but they don't need an outside corner. They need a real slot corner. And we'll see if Bradley Roby is that. He's more of a slot corner than Rasul Douglas for what the Eagles want. Well,
then I'm disagreeing with both you and the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll determine whether I think a guy can play a position by actually watching him play the position.
They're not playing the same defense, Jody. They're not playing the same defense. They're not asking the player to do the same things. That's why I say all the time on this show, not everything is in a vacuum. You can't just say this guy did this here, so he's going to do the same thing here. It doesn't work that way. I've said it for years when people would criticize if Justin Jefferson came here instead of Jalen Reagor as a high-profile example. Yeah, he's still going to be a great player because he's a great player. He wasn't going to put up the numbers that he put up in Minnesota because they have a high-volume passing attack and have from day one. I've said that all the time. It's not a vacuum. So the same thing is not going to happen, and we're talking about a role player. So when you have role players, you're looking for players that fit a particular role. The Eagles already have. They tried it with Bradbury, as we said, who's a really good player, and they wanted to get the hell out of that as quickly as possible. They're still trying it with Eli Ricks because they have to, because Bradley Roby isn't ready to play yet. They've already tried it. They don't want it. They want it. They want the more traditional slot corner, and that's why they're trying to get back to Roby. They'd love to have Avonte Maddox, but they don't have Avonte Maddox. Avonte's one of the best nickel slot corners in the NFL, but he's hurt. But that's what they want, but he hurt. He got hurt.
Right, and you can't put a guy out there that's hurt. Do we not consider the slot corner a full-time position for the Eagles?
Sure.
Okay. Because maybe I misunderstood what you said, because you said we're talking about role players. The slot for the Eagles is more than just a role player. They're in slot a lot.
No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. The role player, you can't have a superstar at every position. So, Rasul Douglas in Green Bay, in Buffalo, in Carolina, and Las Vegas, and everywhere he's been, is a role player. He is not a star player. That doesn't mean he can't be an impactful starter, and he's done some good things, but he's not a star player. That's what I'm saying by role players. You can't have a star at every position. So everybody's got to have their role players, and those role players got to fit into specific roles. In the case of the Eagles, Avonte Maddox he's on the tightrope. He's really good. Would I call him a star? No, but he's a really good player. They have role players all over. They have more stars than most teams, but Sue Opeta, when he's starting, he's a role player. He's not a star.
So you're either a role player or a star player. There's no in between.
You're going to get bogged down in semantics. Now, I don't know if you're being honest here and not
understanding 100% honest, John. Why would I lie to you?
Because you want to win. Because you want to win the argument and say.
I'm just trying to understand the position.
Semantically, it's Rasul Douglas is not a star player, so to me, he's a role player. Now, if you want to say a starter's not a role player, well, then okay. We'll go down that route. That's fine.
That's what I'm asking, is there a position in between star and role?
So he's not. It doesn't change the thesis of he's not a fit for the Philadelphia Eagles in the slot. That's not what they want in the slot. They want Avonte Maddox in the slot. You saw it. That's the template. It's really hard to replicate it. But Bradley Roby is a hell of a lot closer to that type of player than Rasul Douglas. Now, did they try to persevere through because they can't find? They use Sidney Brown in the slot. He's not even a cornerback. They're trying to throw everything at the wall. They've used 8 different slot cornerbacks. But when Roby is healthy, in theory, it stops.
Well, he's got to get healthy, and that's a bit of a thin ice situation because A's older and B's been a historically injured player, and he's still injured right now. I understand exactly what you're saying there. If Roby, Roby's healthy, you got a crystal ball. Roby's healthy. He's your guy. You don't need to go get Rasul Douglas. I got you. But you don't know that right now. You don't even know that he's going to be able to play this week.
You just go with Ricks. You already have that player. You just go with Ricks. You just
So you think Ricks is as good as Rasul Douglas right now?
Well, they love Ricks, And long term, no, not right now. But the point is, I can't believe we're getting bogged down to Rasul Douglas. I mean, what you have a group of players. Same thing with Nolan Smith. You have young players. You don't just want to say after 8 games, all right, these guys suck. Same thing with Calais Ringo. Everybody's Calais Ringo can't get on. It's 8 games. They're not giving up on him. They got 3 6'2" corners. You want a 4th one? They got Mekhi Garner. They got Eli Ricks. They kept these guys for a reason. I mean, you want a 4th one? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Is he more ready to play right now? He's a veteran player. Sure. But why are you keeping these guys then? Why are you wasting your time with these guys? Why are they here? I mean, you can't have a veteran at every particular position, and you're certainly not giving up draft capital. That's a significant pick again. Now they got a 5th back, but they're giving a 3rd. The Eagles aren't giving that up for Rasul. And I'm not picking on Rasul Douglas. If they needed an outside corner, I'd say, yeah, take a shot. But they already have this player, the redundancy of it, and how he made this mistake with Golden Tate years ago, bringing him in when Nelson Aguilar was here. And you have this redundancy of 2 slot receivers, and it didn't work. He tends to learn from his mistakes.
All right. Yeah, you and I see this a little differently. I like to judge guys for what they've done on the field, not try and project what they would or wouldn't do because of their size. But we'll agree to disagree. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We're taking a quickie timeout. I see one Mike Gill, who I was exchanging texts with this weekend. Went well for both Gill and myself. We'll give you details on when we come back. Mike Gill from the Sports Bash down the shore up next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed the most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you. Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac here with you on Birds 365. Will it be a walkthrough Wednesday? No, you have to tell us that at some point during the day. Are they actually?
Yeah, it's a walkthrough. It's a walkthrough.
They're walking through Cowboy Week, huh?
Yeah, they like it. They don't like us watching practice, to be honest.
Do you assume that they walk through until you guys are told that's enough, you can leave, and then they have an actual practice?
No, they'd get in trouble for that. There's cameras all over the place. There's NFLPA people watching.
Right.
You can't do that.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying this is kind of a big week. This is kind of a big game coming up on Sunday. We can get into the specifics of what can and can't happen depending on whether they win or lose. I would think this would be a week they'd try and actually get a full practice in. But what the hell do I know? I know to call Mike Gill when I need West Virginia inside information. I texted him on Saturday morning. I'm doing my handicapping to make my college picks. And I couldn't believe that they were a 6-point underdog to Central Florida on Saturday.
Central Florida on Saturday, yeah.
And I'm going, wait a minute. West Virginia's actually been the better team. Central Florida played well last week, and West Virginia ended that game against Houston a couple weeks ago. So I thought it was recency bias. And I said, wait a minute. West Virginia should actually be a favorite in this game. Let me see. I know I got an unbiased West Virginia guy that I know. Let me see what Mike Gill. So I said, text him and said, you think West Virginia's going to win this week? And he said, I'd take the points, that's for sure. Yeah, I kind of like West Virginia points, and they won the game outright. So I know Mike and I both did well selecting the Mountaineers this past week. Were you in a good mood all week because of that game weekend, Gil?
Yeah, I mean, well, in college football, once your team loses, you're kind of like malaise through the rest of the season. You know, it's kind of. I will say, as an unbiased West Virginia, and my father being a mediator, I would say Rasul Douglas. I tend to lean with John McMullen on this one.
You're another one who believes it's determined by height as to whether you can play in the.
Well, not even remotely what I said. But
but it's like that almost in all sports, where based on your dimensions and size, you are pigeonholed almost into a certain spot. I mean, that's why 6-foot quarterbacks don't get a lot of opportunities. That doesn't mean there's a rarity out there. I'm not sure Rasul Douglas is the rarity. He's a guy that's, when you're taller, there's a lot more of you that has to shift and turn and move, and you get matched up with guys who are not as tall as you. They're quicker and faster. So it's hard for you to make the same twitches. I don't know too many 6'2" guys who have that same speed in a short burst that some of those slot receivers have. That's why teams don't put 6'2" guys in the slot. They're putting 5'11" guys in the slot.
Yeah, Avante, and remember, the Eagles slot corner next year is probably going to be Isaiah Rodgers, who they already have him in the fold. They signed him, suspended for gambling, but he's going to be back. Another, as what you're saying, short area quickness. That's what they're looking for, short area quickness in the slot. That's what the Eagles are looking for. And that's as you mentioned, typically. Now, a lot of people went back.
By the way, I do like Rasul Douglas.
So do I.
That they didn't give him.
I said, and I told Jody, if he could have held on in the transition to Jim Schwartz to Jonathan Gannon, I think he would have been a perfect fit for this defense outside because he's got great ball skills. He's great zone corner. I think he would have succeeded. But they had gone in a different direction. Ultimately, they get Bradbury. But that first year, you think about, they had Steven Nelson, who's a good player, solid player, having a good year in Houston, by the way. If that would have been Rasul, I think he would have been successful. And I think he would have been able to continue his career in Philadelphia. But obviously, they had already decided to move on by that point. So I think he's a good player. not a great player, but I think he's a solid player. Certainly an NFL player, and he's got a chance in Buffalo to play on a really good team, and we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, they want to get to the point where it's Bradley Roby. They would love Avante to be out there. We wouldn't be even talking about this. And next year, it's probably going to be Rodgers. They want to get to that point, and they've thrown, since we'll start there, they've thrown 8 different bodies in there, Mike, in 8 games. That ain't good. And I think when people look at all the issues they had in Washington with the quick passing game, you had Byard, his first game as an Eagle. You had Blankenship coming off an injury, first game back. You had the slot corner was going to be Sidney Brown on, base downs to make it easier, and then Eli Ricks and known passing situations. Is there any surprise there were communication issues? They got to settle this thing down at some point.
Right, that was the first thing I brought up on my show Monday was you got Kevin Byard back there. You got a new slot guy in there, probably as you mentioned, the 6th or 7th different guy. You would imagine that Byard, and I would also follow up with this question, and I don't know if anybody asked Sean Desai. I didn't read through the whole transcript, but did they have to scale anything back because of Byard? Like, did they just have a very basic coverage package in this week because Byard basically had 1 day of practice? I know he got here early, but as Jody chronicled, they don't do anything in practice. They might have had to walk through. Maybe he's in a study hall, but I don't know how many reps he got in an actual practice so I'm wondering if they scaled any coverage back or really vanillaed it a lot for him this week. And I do agree that I would imagine you talk to any corner safety, that communication, I mean, I'm sure Byard and the guy playing the slot probably didn't even know each other's names when they got there, let alone their faces so I would think, look, this is such a week-to-week thing. They had a bad week against the Commanders. 2 weeks before that, they gave up 10 points to the best offense in the league. Yeah. So I think we have to keep it in perspective of when they're playing well, they're really good. And when they don't play well, you saw what happens. But generally, over 17 weeks, some weeks you're not going to play that well. And last week was one of them.
All right, so let me set an over-under. I didn't do well with this last week with the sacks because I thought the Eagles were going to get a lot of sacks against Washington. Didn't come close on that one. I'm going to set the over-under at, I'll go 123.5 since it's less than 125. Don't want them going past the 125 that A.J. Brown gets every single week. 123.5 yards for C.D. Lamb because it sounds to me like the Eagles are just throwing stuff at the wall in the slot corner defensive position and hoping it sticks. And it didn't really stick last week against Sam Howell. So now you got Dak Prescott and C.D. Lamb coming in here, who is a legitimate slot wide receiver, maybe the best slot wide receiver in the entire National Football League. 123 yards receiving, 123.5 for C.D. Lamb. You taking the under or the over?
I would be inclined to say on Wednesday that I would take the over on that. And I say
that's not good, Mike.
No, but they gave up 11 catches, 88 yards to Tyreek Hill. Now, I would imagine if he got 11 catches, generally he would have got more yards out of that. I was surprised it was 88, but I thought the Eagles did a good job of tackling. C.D. Lamb, as you mentioned, does a lot more in the slot, and I don't know that the tackling in that area is going to be as good. So while he might get a lot of yards, if you look at their numbers, their second leading receiver in terms of receptions is Jake Ferguson. Somewhere down that list, you've got Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup. I mean, they have 20 catches, those two guys. We talk about A.J. Brown and the amount of catches he gets here. So if the Eagles are inclined, they might say, hey, you're going to catch 11 balls for 125 yards, but you're the only guy going to be doing anything in this offense. So I would take the over there. And much like Hill, he had 88 yards. He ended up scoring a touchdown, but that's the only score they got all day, really.
Yeah, I mean, here's the Cowboys receivers. C.D. Lamb, 46 receptions, 633 yards. Everybody else, 49, 517. So, I mean,
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because people keep saying about A.J. Brown, it's too A.J. Brown centric. I said, well, last week, Devonta Smith had like 7 for 100 almost.
Yeah,
in
99,
game.
right?
It just kind of goes under the radar because Brown has done something historical. Dallas has nobody approaching what Devonta Smith has done. They are, somebody joked that the Eagles have 2 plays, the brotherly shove and throw it to A.J. Brown. And someone on my show called in and said, well, Dallas has 1. Throw it to CeeDee Lamb or throw it to the other team. That's basically.
Ooh, shot on Dak score.
They're
good listeners, right?
Yeah, CeeDee's very good. Here's my concern about the Eagles defense, and hat tip to our buddy Paul Domowitz. He had that. He's breaking down the game for a stat package here. We all know what the Eagles defense is designed to do. Nick Sirianni says it 10 times a year. Limit explosive plays. They want to win the explosive play battle, and they want to win the turnover battle. If you do that, you win the football game. Statistically, that turns out to be true. The Eagles have been able to persevere with some turnovers and giving up explosive plays. So the Eagles gave up 11 receptions of 15 or more yards against Washington. That makes 56 on the year, and that's what they determine as an explosive play, throwing the football. Last season, they gave up 75 the entire season. Now, to your point, Mike, Washington, it was the quick passing game so they're not tackling after that. That's a big concern. Against Tyreek Hill, for the most part, as you mentioned, 11 receptions, 88 yards. So Jody's over-under is good. If he goes over, that means they're not tackling well. If he goes under, he's still going to get 10 catches.
Yeah.
But if it's 10 for 90, you can live with that. If it's 10 for 150, then you got problems.
That's the, and the comparison was Hill was 11 for 88, where I thought they did a good job tackling. And remember, that was a mismatched secondary. I mean, they had 2 safeties in there that are not on the field right now. Different corner guy, slot guy, whatever you want to call him. So yeah, you would think Kevin Byard, a much better tackler, Blankenship, that those tackles wouldn't be missed. But last week I thought they did a poor job of making the initial stop after the short, quick catch. And the last time they played Washington, the same thing. I don't know what it is about those burgundy uniforms that just can't seem, for whatever reason, they match up well.
They're colorblind to burgundy, I guess.
There you go. The
got to be able to tackle the burgundy. All right, the numbers you threw out there were kind of telling about the Cowboys and their passing game, that it's kind of CeeDee Lamb or bust. How are the Cowboys the number 2 scoring team in the National Football League with such unbalanced passing numbers? They're 28 points a game. They're number 2 in the entire league. Is their rushing game that good? How are they going 28
Pollard's a pretty good player. As you mentioned, as Mike mentioned, would be the tight end would be the number 2 receiver, really. And
they've also had some games where they scored like 40, and you could have a game where CeeDee Lamb has just a monster game and you score 40. So their scoring, I think, is a little tough to.
Well, here's the thing. When the Cowboys, I think I said this yesterday on the show, and so I'll ask you both. When they bring their A game, they beat the brakes off people.
Yeah.
But they're not consistent. Then they'll show up the next week and have really. Now, everybody, the Eagles, as we just pointed out, play great one week, play poorly the next, but they find ways to win games. The Cowboys are more susceptible to the ugly hiccup, but when they play well, so, it's almost you got to feel, are they going to bring their A game? If they bring their A game, they're going to be tough to deal with.
They are, and I think one of the things, I might have mentioned it on here, the difference for me between a Philly, San Francisco, Dallas, San Francisco's obviously struggling right now. I think they got some injury issues that they got to get through. But ultimately the difference between those three, I mean, if you want to throw Detroit in there, I don't know that we have a big enough resume on what Detroit is. But over the last 3 seasons where it's been Philly, San Fran, and Dallas, I think the biggest difference is Philly's mentally tough. They are physically and mentally tough. Dallas has not shown a propensity to be physically and mentally tough week to week. They're great when things are going good. It's a party over there. It's, woohoo, watch us. But when you got to get into a fist fight with them, they don't like to scrap a whole heck of a lot. They like to throw the haymakers. And Philly doesn't mind getting into a 24-10 game, 17-7. I think Dallas, that's where they struggle. They'll have a party when it's a high-scoring back and forth. But are they physically and mentally tough enough? I think there's your difference. These two rosters are both very deep and talented. I think the edge goes to Philly in terms of depth and talent, but they're close. But mentally tough, Philly wins that.
And physically tough. I agree with you there.
Tough, yes.
Here's one issue that I have with the opposition this week, and it's pointed directly at the maybe best owner in the history of the National Football League when it comes to business, not necessarily football. Jerry Jones last week came out and said, yeah, we won't be making any calls. We don't need to make any calls. We're very happy with our roster. We're good where our roster is. Really? Jerry, you're looking up at the Eagles in the standings and you're telling the world that you're perfectly fine. You don't need to do anything. That's why I give Howie Roseman credit with the deal that he made last week for Bayard. The Eagles don't sit on their laurels. And the Cowboys, I don't think, have laurels to sit on to begin with. But Jerry seems to be doing that. Do you think that has a measure of why they're not mentally tough enough?
Well,
because the owner says, oh, we're good. We don't need to make any trades. Somebody calls, well, maybe we'll pick up the phone, but we don't have to do anything. We're perfectly fine. Really, Jerry?
You look at what happened this week. Eagles went and got Bayard. Seattle went out and got Leonard Williams. Seattle's in this mix, by the way. They're in first place in the West.
They are.
They're in the mix. And San Francisco went out and got Chase Young. Dallas sat and watched everybody. So, yeah, the last couple of years this has happened, though, where Philly's gone out and make a move. San Francisco, they went out and got Christian McCaffrey last year.
Yeah,
Dallas,
Detroit got a receiver. Everybody, all the contenders got something.
Yeah, and Dallas has perpetually stayed quiet at this deadline here. And what's the messaging inside that locker room? Man, we've been right there with everybody. And then they all went out and did something, and here we are. So, yeah, I definitely think that plays in why Dallas. Look, the Dallas thing, too, is we're in the Philly market where this team is number one. They got so many people. But Dallas also has to deal with the pressure of constantly being talked about every single week. If they win, they're the greatest. They got to deal with that the whole way. You're the best. They're back in the Super Bowl thing when maybe they really shouldn't be. That can't, we're not in that market every day to deal with that. But I got to imagine that's not easy to constantly deal with either. That when you win, and they win handily a lot, you're a Super Bowl contender again. You go from, that stinks, he's terrible, to, they're a Super Bowl contender again.
Wait, Mike, you don't think that happens right here in Philadelphia?
Oh, yeah, no.
Do you listen to WIP at all? Come on. It's the markets aren't all that different. Same thing. You go from the great.
I think what Mike is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong. In this market, their market is the entire country.
Correct.
They're the New York Yankees of football.
The Eagles are not on the debate shows every day, whether you like those shows or take them serious or not. There are people that sit there, and every day Dallas is the topic. Are they a Super Bowl contender again? It's not, are the Eagles a Super Bowl contender? Is Dallas a Super Bowl contender? And they've got to deal with that every place they go. And I'm not trying to make excuses for them. Boo-hoo for them. This is what they created. But that is something that other teams don't deal with, is that they are constantly put on a pedestal that they probably don't belong on.
And maybe the Eagles are on that pedestal now, but it's earned from the Eagles' perspective. They're a legitimate contender. Obviously, they were a legitimate contender last year. They got the best record again this year. With the Cowboys, how I always describe it, because of their status, whatever you want to call it, they're always, no matter how good they are, they might be really good, but people think they're a little bit better than they are. Always. If they're mediocre, they think they're better. If they're bad, they think they're better, just a little bit. And if they're good, now during the Jimmy Johnson era, didn't matter because they were just better than everybody else. But they're always sort of Notre Dame in college football, same thing. Always people think they're a little bit better than they really are. And there's always, whether it's the Lakers in basketball, there's that team in every sport. Might be the Celtics.
Are you saying that infects their owner right now?
Oh,
Because
God,
I couldn't believe what he said last week.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
we're good. We won't be making any calls. Really, Jerry? You're not 7-0 here, big guy.
It infects the entire organization. That's when, whether you look at the Jimmy Johnson Cowboys or you look at the Derek Jeter Yankees, or you look at the Magic, the Showtime Lakers, or the Kobe Shaq Lakers. When they're so good they can overcome all that crap, that tells you you're seeing something special. But it's always there. It's always there. And it's real. I agree with Mike. It's definitely real. They get more hype than they deserve, typically.
So then here's my next question. Shame on Mike McCarthy for letting that infect the locker room? You're saying the players have to carry that. The players have to deal with that. You really going to let Skip Bayless?
I'm not blaming the coach because it's out of the coach's realm. Doesn't matter who the coach is. Doesn't matter
the coach has no control over the
Jason Garrett. No, every single coach, Barry Switzer, go all the way back, Dave Campo, every single one of them, they got to deal with the same thing. Manager of the New York Yankees, got to deal with it. Coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, got to deal with it. It's just part of it, part of the job description. Not going away. Do you have good players who are able to handle it? And the Cowboys got a bunch of good players.
Well, and that's where I talk about mentally. They're not mentally tough. Is that they do listen to the outside noise. It's only human nature to do it. And yeah, the coach could say the message, hey, they're all going to talk about us, but we got to block that. You're on TV all day, every day, that team. That you turn around and watch TV. Is Dallas a Super Bowl contender again? I mean, they win 40. They beat the Rams. Look, the Rams are a blah. They're just another NFL team. They're with everybody else. They're stuck in the middle. They're good one week. They stink the next. And you beat them 44 to whatever the score was. Great.
And by the way, you guys are on the radio.
Super Bowl contender. Throwing the Rams out doesn't mean you went from you have questions losing to Arizona one week to, hey, we beat the Rams. Now you're a Super Bowl contender. But they look at the screen and say, oh, are we a Super Bowl contender again? Maybe we are.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are on the radio every day, basically. And Philadelphia has sort of a little brother complex to the Cowboys because of all this over the years, going back all the way back to Tom Landry and Roger Staubach. And how many times do you guys hear, it drives me nuts, oh, the Eagles don't get the respect on national TV. The announcers hate the Eagles, whatever. And ironically, NFL Films is at Mount Laurel, and so many people that work for NFL Films are Eagles fans, and so many analysts are Eagles fans. It's the exact opposite. And since in this century, so, pretty big sample size at this point, 2023, no team has been on national TV more than the Philadelphia Eagles, except one, the Dallas Cowboys. But here's where the Eagles have generally been good.
Don't want to give the opposition credit, John, but since you went there, they earn it. Yes. They might not earn it with their one-loss record, but they track the ratings, and guess what? Dallas comes on, the needle moves. So we can say what we want about the Cowboys and not having mental toughness, and, oh, my God, they have to carry the burden of over-coverage by the national media. For whatever reason, Cowboys are on national TV, the ratings spike up. So
and by the way, the Eagles do the same thing, but the Eagles are on national TV.
As big as the Cowboys. Nobody moves the needle like the Dallas Cowboys.
That's the point. But number two in this century has been the Philadelphia Eagles. The difference is the Eagles have to be good to get on national television. And everybody, that could be anybody.
The most watched game this season, though, Eagles Jets.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
No,
because of the Jets. You don't want to go there. You don't want to go there, Gil. The two most watched games this year both include the Jets. The Jets are the needle mover, not the Eagles.
I think four of the top five now are Jets. The NFL just sent out the new list. I'll try to find it. They sent it out yesterday, I think. The top 44 of the top 50 television shows are NFL games so far this year. And I believe the Jets are in four of the top five. That was the Aaron Rodgers effect, and people are just immersed in it. But I think as they continue to see Zach,
that is like bizarre to me. Like, are there people out there that are so casual of football fans that they think Rodgers is still playing? Are they watching the game or
I don't think.
You saw the Jets beat the Eagles, right, Miguel?
Right,
the Jets are actually a fascinating team. They're a very imperfect team, but they're a fascinating team.
Oh, 1,000%. But generally what generates big ratings is a star. Aaron Rodgers isn't there. Like, at some point you would think the casual fan, why would you be interested in this Jets team?
All right, here it is. Top 5 games. Week 1, NBC, obviously, Detroit, Kansas City was 26.9 million. Kansas City Jets, 26.2.
KC.
Bengals 49ers, 26.1. So they did a big number for that game. Eagles Jets, 26.1, just a little bit below the other and fourth, and Jets Cowboys 25.9.
And that was a massacre. I guarantee you that number went down as the game went on because the Cowboys just crushed the Jets. People had to get away from that one in droves.
44 of the top 50 TV shows since the start of the 2023 TV season have been NFL games. And by the way, Cowboys Eagles at 425. That will be in the top 5 next week.
Right. And listen, the Jets are in New York. It's a lot, but it's not like the Jets historically have been a big draw.
No.
So just to say, well, they're in the biggest, I see somebody in the chat saying they're the biggest media market. It's not like the Jets are perpetually some great television draw.
No.
This is the bizarre thing to me is that, they got Aaron Rodgers. And I, Jody Mack, thought that they were going to be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl with that defense and Wilson and Rodgers and Hall. But they don't have Aaron Rodgers. What the hell are you watching them for? I mean, we always say.
I don't know how people stuck through that Jets-Giants game. I don't know what the ratings were for that, but man,
that didn't make the top 5. I
bless those people. But and that's the biggest media market against the biggest media market.
Right.
And it was the worst game of the history of
football. The NFL has made every rule to try to help out the offense. And offenses stink in this league. It's painful to watch offenses play in this league.
You know why? And you're going to see it this week, even more so, with Clayton Tune and Jaron Hall are going to start NFL games. Now, Jody's talking about the Jets and Giants. Zach Wilson is Otto Graham compared to Tommy DeVito. And
you don't want to get me started on that.
Do most of the people watching this show right now even know what team Jaron Hall and Clayton Tune are about to start for?
Probably not, unless they're paying attention to.
I give them 1 out. I give them 1 out of 2 on the guess.
Maybe because
I will say this. Let's see. I think I brought this up with you before, Mike Gill, and I think you disagree with me as my partner does. But if I die on this hill, so be it. I believe that at the beginning of the year, the NFL, off the record with their officials, said, listen, we're catching some flack here. We're giving the guy with too many penalty flags. Nobody wants to see a pass interference flag. It's the criticism we hear. You got to watch the play, and then you got to look to the screen where the flag little yellow thing pops up to see if maybe we cut them a little slack on the back end defensively. We let the corners play a little defensively. If it's a split second he gets there before the ball gets there, don't just, if it's a blatant, you got to throw the flag because they're going to show a replay on television. You're going to look like an idiot for not having called pass interference. But if it's at the same time, damn close to say, let them play. I watch a lot of games. I watch the Red Zone on Sundays. And there were a lot of plays that weren't being called that I thought, just judging by my own eye, what's a pass interference, what's not a pass interference over the last several years in the NFL. They were letting it go. I really did believe that. And I thought it was a directive directly from the league. I'll tell you what, this past weekend, they went back to dropping the flags. And I think it had something to do with what you just pointed out. They got too many games. The Jets and the Giants, as ugly as that was, they're going, now, wait a minute. We didn't say we want to get it down to 13-10 games. We want to let them play a little defense, but we got to keep the overall scoring up. I think there's been another directive from the league that they got to go back to calling pass interference.
I just think there is a way where you, like, for example, the roughing the passer penalty. It's egregious sometimes. It's so bad. I don't mind if the official throws the flag and says, we want to look at whether this was a roughing the passer. There was somebody pushed, somebody fell. Let's throw the flag. And that signifies start looking at that play immediately. And then they can call out and say, nah, there's not enough there. That penalty keeps drives alive, that stuff. There was a penalty in the game last week against the Eagles. It helped the Eagles out against Brandon Graham for like a low block on the opposite side of the field. They ran the other way. It had nothing to do with the play. Why you call that? Why? Why is that penalty? It has nothing to do with the play. It's not
safety, Mike. Safety. Yeah.
But Jody's point is, like, you would tell these guys, look, let the guys play. If the penalty is a minute penalty on the opposite side of the field, these 5-yard holdings, when the throw goes to the right side and the guy's being held on the left side of the field, and I don't understand. To me, many of these officials, I'd love to sit in a room with them and just talk football. I don't think they have any clue about the game. I really don't. I think a lot of these guys.
I'm the only person in the world that defends those guys, and I've said it on your show. People don't hate the officials; they hate the legislation.
I know that, but I think a lot of them don't even. I don't think they legislate it the right way. I just don't. I don't think they have, like, for instance, I do play-by-play. Okay. When you have a producer who has sports background, they have a feel for tell the camera guy to go there. Let's get this shot. When you have a producer who's a producer, but he's not a sports guy, he doesn't have that intuition. He doesn't have that feel of this is the moment, get the crowd. I feel like that's the officials. They don't have the intuition of this play. This penalty has nothing to do with this play. I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah. I'm always amazed because I'm amazed how much shit they get right, to be honest, because the toe tap, I'm like, oh, there's no way this guy's in. And they call him in and you look at the oh, damn, he's in. And they did it in real time. I'm kind of amazed at how good they are.
In that, dude.
I think people hate the legislation. I hate the legislation. If they threw everything on you, Mike, and said, oh, you got to do this, you got to look for this, you got to do this, and everything's just subjective, and you're still a human being. Last time I checked, you're going to blow calls. I think that's baked into the game. That's where every coach in the world has told me, control what you can control. You're going to get screwed. Jody knows I rarely complain about officiating. I just don't. To me, it's useless. Number one,
agreed.
And number two, there's nothing you can do about it. So you either persevere or you don't. Everybody's got to persevere through
Jacksonville last week. It's not good when now the player from Jacksonville came flat out and said the refs wanted Pittsburgh to win the game. He flat out came out and said they wanted Pittsburgh to win the game. Whether that's true or not, you are at a point now where your officiating is so bad that the players are coming out and saying, we think the officials wanted Pittsburgh to win the game. Now, I hear this all the time from Dallas fans. Dallas perpetual, a lot of fans, but Dallas fans. The refs killed us. If there was any team in the entire league that the NFL wants to win and have the refs on their side, as Jody chronicled, it's Dallas.
Well, here in Philadelphia, I'll throw this to, I'm not going to say it can't happen because Tim Donaghy exists. So, again, somebody could fix a game if they wanted to fix a game, do something untoward. But I don't think it's consistent in any way. I don't think anybody. And here in Philadelphia, a lot of Phillies fans said, "Oh boy, you know, baseball must be upset to have the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers in the World Series." And sure enough, the TV ratings are down because it's not a great matchup. So on the back end of that, well, then why would baseball want the Diamondbacks and Rangers? The umpires make mistakes, of course. Strike zone drives me nuts like it drives everybody nuts. They make mistakes all the time. But no, they don't. To use your point, and I don't know who that was in Jacksonville, but they didn't want Pittsburgh to win. Could there be an outlier, Tim Donaghy, who's in trouble because he gambled away? I guess, but come on.
By the way,
worry
Mike,
about your team.
If
Worry
you
about
do
your
know,
team.
Mike, who was the guy from Jacksonville? Are we talking about a backup defensive tackle, or if it wasn't Trevor Lawrence, or
I think it was a wide receiver or maybe a corner.
And he's probably emotional after the game. Yeah,
I'm not going to put any stock into that because he said it just.
I'm not putting stock in the fact, but my point.
No,
is,
I know what you're saying.
There's
You're
a player out there
think
who's
it, yeah.
expressed that he thinks that that's a possibility. Now, to your point on the Tim Donaghy thing, how many officials officiate a game every single week? What's the background on these guys? Who knows what Joe Schmo's doing Monday? This is the whole thing with they're not full-time guys. They have jobs. You know, we don't know what these guys are doing. We have no idea what's in their mind.
That I agree with. There should be more accountability. Like, one of the problems, the only problem I have with officiating, if you blow a big call in a big spot and somebody loses a game and doesn't make the playoffs, people's lives are affected. Coaches get fired, support staff gets fired, players essentially get fired by being released. It affects a lot of people. And if you blow calls consistently, there's no that I agree with. There
That is
should
the
be more
biggest, I think, the perception in all sports. There's no accountability for being not good at your job. We all have accountability generally, about if you do something that's perpetually not good. An official consistently gets calls wrong. What's the penalty? We never hear from this guy. We just see him the next week making more calls.
Yeah, like Angel Hernandez. Yeah, he should be out the door. But
give the Major League Baseball umpires this much. They got one of the best unions.
Yeah, they have a tremendous union
on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
So they do get away with that stuff. All right, Gil, we're way over time. Here's the only thing I need from you. I'm going to make a prediction that after the game, the Eagles versus the Cowboys this week, there's going to be fans that are going to blame it on the ref. Either way, doesn't matter how the game goes. Eagles win, true. Cowboys win. Yeah. There's going to be a percentage fan go, we were screwed by the referees. So that's my prediction. I need a different prediction from you. Eagles will either do this, and it'll be the reason why they win, or the Eagles will do that, and it'll be the reason that they lose. Fill in one of the two blanks. What either concerns you, and this could cost the Eagles game, or a matchup that you like the Eagles that they have, and that's the reason why they're going to win the game. Which blank you choosing to fill in, and how you filling it in.
I'm glad you asked me this question, because this week I think we're going to see the Eagles go back to road grading, running the football, demoralizing Dallas, running.
Kenny Gainwell, is this a Kenny Gainwell week?
No, it's a DeAndre
the coach
Swift
back his
game.
stance on Kenny Gainwell. I can't bench him because then I have to bench everybody every time they made a mistake. Is this a Kenny Gainwell breakout week, Mike Gill?
No, it's a Swift game. And by the way, I wouldn't even be surprised if we didn't see a lot of Gainwell. That whole thing with the IG, I think there should be more on that. That's preposterous. You're on Instagram.
I didn't bring up the at halftime. Yeah,
at halftime. That's ridiculous. But still, 35 carries, big game. They run it out, 200 yards. Dallas is just huffing and puffing, bending over, thinking we just got our asses whipped up front. And there's your difference in the game.
You know why I like the IG thing? We're way over. But you know why I like it, Mike? Because it proves to people, they're not doing shit at halftime except checking their phones, taking a pee, and having an orange slice.
They're making adjustments.
Nobody's sitting there on the chalkboard.
You're making adjustments.
Throwing the game plan out and making
halftime adjustments.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time for a coach to take charge and actually say, let's see if we can get just something discussed during the half. That would be my way to look at it. Mike, always a pleasure. Who's West Virginia play this week?
Oklahoma.
Who we got? We got T-shirts. What is that?
I got University of Penn. I'm a Quaker today.
Penn.
Okay.
West Virginia does not play Oklahoma this week. I think.
I believe you were at the Wharton School from 2004 to 2006, I believe.
I stepped foot on the campus.
Yeah, you meandered over there after going to. God damn it! Why can't I think of the great sports building that's right there next to the Penn campus? I'm thinking of Palestra. I had a brain fart there. Right. Yeah,
Franklin Field
had his eighth beer at the Palestra, and unfortunately thought he parked near the Wharton School.
Oh, like West Virginia plays BYU. They play Oklahoma next week.
All right. Okay. Smokey Joe's. Does that still exist? That was a great bar down by Penn. I don't know if it's still there, but hopefully.
Yeah, I won't be texting you about this week, Mike. But you and I both had West Virginia out last weekend. Mike Gill, thank you very much. He's the host of the Sports Bash on 97.3 Down the Shore, ESPN Radio, and he sucks McMullen into joining him every single week.
By the way, Zander's probably mad at us.
We're way late. Let's take a break. Come back. Chris Franklin yet to join us. Lots to do on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You got John McMullen and Jordan McDonald, your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. Thanks, Mike Gill, for hopping on. And Chris Franklin's going to join us in less than 10 minutes now. And again, sorry, Zander, we went a little long. Just got carried away talking. You buying what Gill's selling? And I'll try and put it in this perspective, John. If you can quickly crunch the numbers for me, or you do them off the top of the head, you could really impress me. Eagles' average running game, which includes Jalen Hurts, which we know this week, if it's anything like last week, and I don't know how much that bone bruise is going to heal over the 7 days going from the Commanders to the Cowboys. His running isn't going to be what it usually is. How much of a drop-off there is, I don't know. But Gil is predicting a pound it and run it down their throat game for the Eagles. How many running attempts that they usually have per game? What do they rush for per game? These are per game stats I'm looking at. And looking at those numbers, average. And now we're up to 7 games. So that's not a bad sample size. It's almost half a season, 8 games. So you got to get one more to get over the halfway point. How big a rushing game do you think it will be for the Eagles, as Mike is predicting?
Yeah, let's see. It's a good question. I haven't thought about it yet. Typically, the Eagles, pass to run the football. So they want to get the lead, and generally there's more passing early. I don't think that changes. And then it becomes sort of, all right, how's it going? Are you up 10-0? Then the running game becomes a bigger deal. I don't think it's going to be as big as a run game, because the Eagles' run game, now I'm just kind of thinking about it, is
132.3. That's what they average running per game, which
it's quarterback. They're 7th in the league.
7th in the league, right.
Now, coming into last week's game, and I don't have the numbers this week, they ran the football more than anybody else. They were number 1. Number 2 was Baltimore. There's a reason they're number 1 and Baltimore's number 2, because they both have running games that are partially attributable to the quarterbacks. The fact that Jalen Hurts is probably not going to be 100% as he was last week, as you mentioned, in Washington, scaled back. I don't think they're going to run the ball as much, because the quarterback isn't going to be. It's got to be more traditional, and I don't think they're as effective with just the traditional hand the football off running game. So until Jalen is back, I don't know if you're going to see that type of game back to 100%. I mean, I don't think you're going to see that type of game, to be honest.
So you would take under the 132.5 yards, which is their average.
That depends. I misunderstood. I thought you were talking just run heavy game, not effectiveness. That has to do with, are they ahead? If they're ahead, yeah, they're going to go over. If they're below, they're going to go under. I'm going to say they go. I think it's going to be a close.
Do you think
game.
they're going to be ahead, since you're hedging here, which is actually a probably pretty smart hedge?
I'm hedging,
lean as to which way you think the game's going to go. The number's 132.5.
Yeah, I'm hedging because I'm thinking it out as I'm talking. I think it's going to be a close game, and so I would take the under. Yeah, because I think in a close game, they're trying to win the game. There's going to be more passing. But if they're up to,
you're laughing at Mike Gill's prediction, is what you're doing.
I'm not laughing at it. I just don't agree with it.
I'm laughing at you laughing.
I think it's going to be a close game. But I say all the time, I say it to Seth every week. He asks about the run-pass ratio. Same thing. Tell me, what's the score in the fourth quarter? I'll tell you the run-pass ratio. That's all it comes down to.
We all like to think we can figure out exactly what the coach is thinking going in. Yeah, and then the scoreboard dictates what the coach is thinking. Yeah. Well, the game is being played much more so than your pregame. John has already convinced all of us there's no such thing as halftime adjustments.
I did that. First of all, Jim Schwartz convinced me. I'm relaying information. And by the way, Jim, all Jim said was, yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit. I'll use the term. You're making adjustments from series 1. The coaches make adjustments the entire time. But yeah, and then Peyton Manning said it on national TV, and I give Peyton all the credit in the world. So not John McMullen. You can put some stock in Peyton Manning, because he's the one who said, I'm taking a leak and getting an orange slice. That's what I'm doing at halftime. So, take it for what it's what it is.
Right. And it's probably overstated. And that's the point you're trying to make. Those who think that they sit down and hammer all this. No, it's much more relaxed. But there are adjustments, and there are ongoing adjustments. There are adjustments during the game from play to play. And I don't care if you make them during the 14 minutes of downtime of the
I'm
half,
not saying there
or if
aren't
you're making an
tweaks.
adjustment with 30 seconds to go into the half or the first 30 seconds of the second half. You just better be ready to make adjustments when stuff you're doing isn't working. That's the point I'm making.
I'm making fun of the old school Hollywood. Oh, you go into the locker room, you get the blackboard out, and you rip up the game plan, and you come up with a new game plan. That's what adjustments go on throughout the entire game. The entire game.
And I thought that the adjustments that the Eagles didn't make on defense last week is on Sean Desai. After, what did Hal go? 8 of 8, 8 of 9, 9 of 10.
He was 21 of 22, I believe.
21 of 22. I would have made an adjustment somewhere before he got to 21 of 22.
He did, though. That's the point. They weren't working. He did. Trust me, he did. It wasn't working. That's the problem. And yeah, they were trying. They were trying. They just didn't play well.
Try harder. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We're Mac and Mac on Birds 365. Chris Franklin indoors. Yeah, it's a little chilly out there. Hey, fall has finally arrived. That's a good thing. And as a matter of fact, I'll tie that into why the Eagles got stiff this weekend. I'll explain when we come back here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Mac and Mac guys, sit on Birds 365. Dallas week. Cowboys coming up on Sunday, and we got Chris Franklin from NJ.com to jump in with us. And you are the perfect guy to have on right here, right now, because I want to take you back to April.
Okay.
The NFL schedule comes out, and we immediately go to the Eagles and see what they've got. And looks early easy. Look at that gauntlet they got to run in the middle of the season. Oh my God, back to back weeks. Bye. One thing that jumped out at me, I remember bringing this up here on Birds 365. I wanted to know why the Eagles were playing the Cowboys at home first and in Dallas second. Because usually they flop that every year. The year it's Cowboys in Philadelphia and then Eagles in Dallas. And the next year it's the Eagles in Dallas early and the Cowboys coming to Philadelphia. They almost always do it the exact reverse of what they had it the year before. This is the second consecutive year where the Eagles go to Dallas later in the season. They play the Cowboys here first. I know how many league sources you have. You're so tied into 345 Madison Avenue. It's ridiculous. Why did Roger Goodell tell the Eagles, no, we're not doing that this year?
Boy,
the script writers, didn't they just say they wanted to make sure, because the Eagles have issues down there in Arlington and Jerry World, so it makes it more drama.
Script writers told Roger Goodell he had to do it that way.
I'm impressed.
Did either of you guys see those commercials at the beginning of the year?
They were great.
The readings around the reading room, and how can we write the most ridiculous things about the upcoming
Keegan Michael
Those
Key,
were very entertaining.
the great Hingle McCringleberry. Michael Key, one of the great sketches of all time. Hingle. Look it up on YouTube, by the way. By the way, speaking of script writers, Chris, first of all, I'm impressed by Jody that you even remember that. I didn't know they did that, to be honest. Switch year to year. Typically,
yeah. It's
I didn't even know
one
that.
than any other.
But speaking of script writers, I mean, come on. They fire Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, and the head coach is Antonio Pierce, and they're playing the New York Giants. Come on, that's pure script. Script.
Yeah, I remember that commercial too. I think when they were pointing to, they're going to love this. I think that's what the part they were looking at, saying, they're going to love this part. I think the fact that they waited this late,
but they're playing the Giants. They got to come up with an angle. That's a hell of a script. Antonio Pierce, great linebacker for the Giants.
And the fact they did it so late on a Tuesday of all things, it's like, wait a minute. Like if you're so angry you're gonna fire a guy after the game or something like that, or Monday. You're gonna wait till Tuesday when most of the people are asleep, and the only reason I was still up, I couldn't sleep. So I'm sitting like, huh?
It's such
a now I can't sleep.
They didn't play till Monday night, so that pushed everything back for them. And I'll give credit to Davis because he takes a little grief. I've heard he's not his father. He doesn't have the fire and brimstone of his father. He doesn't want to fire the coach because he doesn't want to pay off the coach. I actually think he's gotten a bad rap. Good on him for firing that coach yesterday. You know why? Because that coach stinks.
He does stink.
And you're very lucky, Philadelphia Eagle fans, that he's not the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Because Howie Roseman wanted to hire him badly here, and Jeff Lurie said, no, we won't have that.
Well, Howie recommended him. Jeffrey turned it down. But
because just imagine if it happened, would Howie still be here? That's the thing. Like if it was that bad,
Howie'd be fine. He'll be fine on his seventh coach. Jeffrey made that mistake once. He's not going to make it again. But all right, let's talk about Howie. Come on, Chris. He doesn't do anything. What's wrong with Howie Roseman? He makes a splash, but he doesn't do it. The timing is incorrect for some people. You got to do it. He's got to do it on the day. He's got to do it on the day of.
Jeez, that's why I don't get the uproar. Like everybody's talking to like Howie's cooking. Like last week when they got Howie's cooking, Howie's got all this stuff and it's looking great, and then now everything doesn't make a move right now. It's like, what is he doing? I don't get it. It's so fickle. I don't understand. I mean, the guy was able to get Kevin Byard. You can't grab everybody that's quote unquote available. And it was tough. It was tough to get anything done. Like if people are asking for twos and ones and everything for certain guys, how you gonna get it? You still have to pay Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson an extension pretty soon. Some of these guys still under contract. And when are you gonna play it? You got so many people that are about to come back. You don't have the roster space. Yeah. And it's gonna be bad enough you're gonna be cutting some people. So I don't know what they can do. It's so fickle.
All right, CF. Everyone's got opinions. They're kind of like sphincters. Everybody has one. And if you can cut through it a little bit and get to the facts, and Dak Prescott, in his career, in games that he's started and played more than half, is 8-2 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I know Dak. I know Dak's lack of production in playoffs and not being able to get it done. But in season, he's 8-2 against the Philadelphia Eagles. And he's only started one game where Jalen Hurts was the opposing quarterback. Now, it was game 3 of the Sirianni era, and certainly the Eagles have changed and improved since. But history says Zach is a tough out for the Philadelphia Eagles. You believe that this week?
Yeah, I do. I think Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy may have given them a game plan how to do it, because I look at the way that they were able to use the short passing game, and the easiest way, especially you don't want Dak to start throwing interceptions downfield, is to just make it easy, makeable throws. And for the way that the Commanders were attacking the Eagles, especially in the middle of that field, you throw CeeDee Lamb going on those crossing routes and trying to match him up while he's running away from defenders and finding soft spots in that zone. It gives me some concern. It really does. And I look at the way, especially with Dak, if he gets going early and going in a rhythm, he can be a problem. And I think it's going to be imperative. I think it's going to be a week where you have to do a tendency breaker and just say, you know what, you think we're going to play passive, we're going to play the zone. Maybe blitz him a couple times early and get him out of that funk, because if you do that, then old Dak that plays other teams in the middle of the year starts to show up and maybe for some pressure. So I think it's the week where this is going to be the week where I think you look at Sean Desai and you laud him for what he did against the Dolphins. I think this is the week where he really he really proves himself. I really truly do, because going to a bye and you got those 2 weeks, and this is where you start to make those assumptions like what are you going to do the rest of the season.
For the most part, let's talk about Sean Desai, Chris Franklin, because I think a lot of people really like Sean. I think there's a lot of things to like. I think partially it's because they hated the old defensive coordinator so much, but I'm starting to say, come on. Jody said sphincter, so I'll say crap or get off the pot when it comes to slot corner. Make a damn decision, man. All these moving parts are not helping this secondary, this back seven as a whole. And I'll throw the linebackers in there as well. If Nakobe's your guy, Nakobe's your guy. Put him out there with Zach Cunningham. And Nick Morrow, thanks for the couple good games. And if we need you again, we'll call on you again. I think there's been a lack of chemistry in the back seven, and I think it's up now. Fire just got here; you can't help that. But I think it'd be help if you made a decision. I like that you're open-minded and looking at all these different avenues, but I think we're at the point where you got to make a decision.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, and I'm splitting on this one too. I think when it comes to slot corner, I don't have a problem with them switching and matching up. It's just the people that they're using in certain situations that I think is a little tough. I like Sidney Brown a lot. I think he's going to be a really bright future, but when they're using a lot of like the 11 and you put him in the slot against a quick wide receiver, I think that can present some issues when it comes to stuff like that. Linebacker wise, I don't have a problem with the rotation thing. I think it's telling that when they haven't put Nakobe, when they keep put him in and out, I don't know if that's I thought we've heard so much time before the season began. He's a 3-down linebacker. He's a 3-down linebacker, and they're not using him in that way. And it's like, and I start to wonder, like, are they worried about his coverage or not? And why are they throwing him in to mix it up? So I would think it's best to solidify that part right now and just put Nakobe in there. I like the way Morrow played early in the season. I still like the way he plays special teams. But if Nakobe's your future, quote unquote, future in the middle, you got to let him play all those snaps in the middle. But slot corner, I have no issues with him mixing and matching it up. I mean, especially with how much.
About when Roby comes back?
I think that's
or even your slot corner. Bang, that's it.
No, I'm still mixing them in because I really think especially these teams where you got the tight ends and everything else, I think he's played well. I think that one game he played, that mostly he played, I think he did all right. But I think you still need to mix them up with those matchups in the middle because it can be really tough. I still have questions if I'm seeing him in the middle of that side, I'm going to be just run the game, run power right at him, and just make him force him to step up and try to do that. I think That's why I think he mixes and matches in the slot a little bit more. But linebacker, they really should solidify that. Just say, hey, Nakobe, you're the guy.
Yeah, John and I disagree on this one a little bit because I haven't seen enough of Roby. He played 25 snaps against the Rams, and he's the number one guy because of 25 snaps. I need to see a little bit more. He might be, John might be right. He might be the best of the lot and by plenty, but I'm not just penciling him in because he had 25 great snaps against the Rams and then got hurt. I need to see a little bit more, but he should be at the top of the still evaluating list for me at slot corner. I'm giving you a hypothetical. People love my hypotheticals. The streamers just love when I do this. I'm putting you on the spot here, Chris. Sunday afternoon, halftime score, 14-10 Dallas. The Eagles are getting the ball to start the second half because, of course, they won the coin toss and they deferred, which they always do. So they get the ball to start the second half. They didn't get that, get it right before the half and get the back-to-back possession. Didn't quite work out for the coach this week. Dallas actually scores with under 30 seconds to go to take a 14-10 lead. So we're coming out in the second half. Eagles get the kickoff. They go down the field. They're driving. They get the ball first and goal from the 9-yard line. Down 14-10, first possession in the third quarter. What running back would Chris Franklin have in the backfield with Jalen Hurts and the rest of the offense? And predict for me what running back the Eagle coaching staff will have in the game. First and goal from the 9, down 14-10, early third quarter.
Once you said first and goal for 9, I knew where this question was going when it came to that. I would have DeAndre Swift because of the productions he's had in that area. He's got a full yard against Kenneth Gainwell. He's averaged just about like a full yard against more versus Kenneth Gainwell, and I like his power. But I think they're going to put Kenny in there because of I think they're going to put Kenny in there because they feel confident that for some reason they use him a lot. I think personally. I know they like to use Kenny. They talk about Kenny's receiving thing, but DeAndre Swift, that's one of his main attributes is he's able to catch the ball out of the backfield if you're going to still throw. I mean, but given history, what they do on the first play, most of the time on the first play in the goal, first and goal, they run the ball. So I want to get the ball. I want to get the ball flowing to DeAndre Swift and let him use that power and try to get in there. And we've seen the fumble that Kenny's had in there, and he's not been as effective in my opinion, but I mean, I just they love Kenny in that spot, but I put DeAndre in there.
By the way, Pro Football Focus says 54 running backs rated who played enough. Number 53 is Miles Sanders. Number 54 is Kenny Gainwell.
Oh, get out of here!
They
only have 54 running backs ranked.
Yeah,
and
those are the guys that have played enough to be ranked. DeAndre, by the way, is 33rd, so it's not like he's killing it. Much of his issues are pass protection. Now, I believe you were the one who asked about Kenny and his Instagram follies. Your take on that? We all know he should put the phone away. You have to ignore trolls, but sometimes it's easier said than done. What's your take on the whole situation?
That to me it says a lot because I know these guys. Trust me, we get them. We all get trolled at times. Up here in DMs, all that stuff. It gets. Some of them, I will say that some of the troll jobs are actually kind of funny. I got to laugh at some of them. Like, all right, cool. But to do that, like, I understand you're frustrated. I understand that you're not playing as well as you did in the game. I think you had -4 yards going into that at halftime. I know you wanted to feel like you need to lash out, but that is not the time to do that. You need to focus. If anything, you just have to focus on, all right, how am I going to come back and bounce back and somehow atone for that mistake that I did? And the fact that even I'll give him this credit, saying he didn't use expletives and he didn't use whatever, could have said a lot worse, but he's still effective. You can't do that, man. Like, people are they're going to get under your skin, and he can't. It's, to me, I question like that tells I question like this stuff like why are you doing that, man? Like what? There's no good that comes of that. You're sitting there looking. You're supposed to be one of these guys that are going to be on a team that's won a Super Bowl, and you want to jeopardize that stuff. If this team's record was any less, or this is any other coach, he probably might be either A, facing a suspension of some sort, B, might be the college way of playing. Hey, you're not playing the rest of the half or whatever, or see a lot, consider a lot of snaps taken away because of that. This is the Belichick role.
Nick is tremendously loyal, almost
yeah.
To a fault. I will say it if you don't want to say it, John. To a fault, Nick Sirianni can be about.
It's not only Kenny. We saw and you know we've seen it with Quez Watkins. We've seen it with Derek Barnett. Now we see it with Olamide Zaccheaus. When he's saying when Julio Jones comes in and he said unprompted, Olamide Zaccheaus is always going to have a spot on a Nick Sirianni offense. Well, why? I mean, if you find better players, why? Yeah, he's. It hasn't been a problem to this point, but you could see where it could be a problem down the road, or not. Am I overstating it?
Well, I think he's loyal because he had. Excuse me. We hear him talk about so much about these roles and everything. If they're playing their role, all right, it's fine. Like Zach Pascal. Nick loved Zach Pascal going back to the Colts, and here he was there before, so he did it well. It's when you start to not do your role and you're not producing on the field and not doing anything. That's why I think you need to reevaluate the stuff. And I know we talk about how, or he says that, hey, these guys can be called upon at some point and you need them. They allow us. You don't want to crush their confidence and everything else. But sometimes
I get that. Yeah.
But sometimes you just need to take them off the field and let them look and reassess things and bring them back in later, and so they can have their moment later on. Like, the Zaccheaus one, I have no issue because you can see he does other things. Zaccheaus is this year's Pascal for sure. Quez stuff and everything else. That's the way.
John always likes to point out the role player, and I understood what Zach Pascal's role was. He was a blocking wide receiver, and he was really good at it. In that role, he was a very good player. It was a limited role, but he was very good. What role does Olamide actually fill for the Eagles? What's the aspect of his game that elevates him to he might not be great across the board, but in the role he plays, he's great. What's Olamide's superpower that I'm missing out on?
I'll let Chris answer that one because I haven't figured it out.
I think he's more of the fourth option, and if all else fails, when nothing's downfield and he's running a route, that's him. That's okay, where's the first down marker? Find it, sit around. If AJ's not there, Devontae's not there, he's available, but it hurts you like scramble that one too.
I'm available. That's the power I want on my wide receiver.
Might do that for Halloween next year.
Here's the next one I got for you, Chris Franklin. And again, I'm going to sound like a worrywart. The Philadelphia Eagles are -3 in giveaway takeaway this season. And the game that they lost, they were -3 for the game against the Jets, right? Wasn't it like 4-1 on the turnover battle? The only game that they've lost, they turned it over a bunch against the Jets. They've been able to overcome that and not have it affect their one-loss record. Dallas Cowboys, I believe, are second in the league at +8. Somewhere thereabouts. I just had it up here. Number 4. They're +6 for the year. There's only 3 teams with better plus-minus than them. Is that a big factor in this game this week? Could the Eagles lose this game because they lose the turnover battle?
Yeah, if they continue to fumble the ball in the red zone, this game is going to be one of those where you're going to have to match scores. I really think it's going to start going. You got to match scores. I don't think it's going to be shootout. But it's going to be one of those things where you can't have possessions in their territory that don't come away with points, because if you do, you're going to find yourself that way. So you can't just continue to give away. And for the life of me, I don't know what changed year to year. We've seen the emphasis they place on that ball security. We've seen the drills and everything else they do. That for some reason they're hanging it out like a loaf of bread. They're punching it out, and it's like they also regressed in that part of their game, and they can't against teams like the Cowboys in this next stretch. No matter what, in this next stretch of games, they cannot turn this ball over because that's going to cost them. Like, they got away with it because of the opponents they played. It really is. That's what it came down to. A lot of their opponents they played they were able to get away with that stuff. You can't do this against these teams. Some of them you may see in the Super Bowl on the AFC side, and some of these you might be probably fighting for an AFC Championship game. So this is going to be hard. You can't.
It's funny.
Fumbled away.
We were sitting waiting for the coordinators yesterday in the auditorium, Chris, and I don't know if you heard, but Merrill Reese asked me if that was new, and he was pointing at the ball security takeaway, the big banner. At the top
Eagle Claw.
Yeah. And it's not new. They put it up there this year, but I think it was funny. Merrill brought it up, and I was like, they first put it up last year when they were ridiculous. The first, where were they? +11. And they put this thing up. It was on the sides, and then they combined it into one. And ever since they put that damn thing up, it hasn't worked. Superstition, Chris, just rip that thing down. Right?
It's so much ingrained in their mind. They're starting to worry about making sure they're eagle clawing. It's going when they go to the cafeteria. When you go to the cafeteria, eagle claw your tray. If not, somebody's going to come by and swat it out of there when you eat that. But but you can't. Yeah, it is. Now, maybe it's personnel. I think it's personnel based on that one too. I mean, yeah, the fact that it's in every meeting, every time they have a meeting in that room is top of mind. You still can't. You still fumbling the ball. It's like, what's going on there?
I am scared that CeeDee Lamb could have this massive breakout game against Eagles this week because John has thoroughly convinced me they don't have a slot corner unless somehow Bradley Roby miraculously is not only on the field but 100% healthy and great. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to have a big number this week, and that's scary. But I also believe A.J. Brown's getting 125 again, don't you? He's already got the record at 6. Why not make it 7? Put distance between yourself and everybody else. There's nobody on the Cowboys that can cover A.J. Brown, is there?
Nah. First off, I'll go back to the original point. I probably have Slade. This is a week I probably have Slade travel. I would take him away and then force Gallop and then beat you that way.
If he travels though and he goes into the slot, then what do you do?
I still put him in there. I trust him. I trust him to put him in there and leave the space. Like, okay, you know what? Especially you want him to be the guy. You want him to be the guy in the secondary. You're going to shut down their best guy. This is one of those weeks where you say, you know what? I'm shutting you down. You got your best on best. Try to beat me somewhere else. That's when it comes to that. But when it comes to Cowboys covering, yeah, they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody to do that. And it's going to be one of those things where we talk about
Diggs. That's a big injury.
Yep.
He's not there. Deron Bland's playing really well, though. Stephon Gilmore can still play. And then I guess Jordan Lewis would be the third corner. But if they had Trayvon Diggs, then I'd be like, this might be the best group of cornerbacks in the NFL. But, yeah, he's not there. AJ. Michael Irvin brought up a good point. I rarely say that, but he said this is the game of 11s. Either Micah Parsons is going to wreck the game or A.J. Brown's going to wreck the game. And if Micah doesn't get home, A.J.'s going to wreck the game. Is it that simple, Chris Franklin?
I don't think so, but if you give me the choice of 11s, given the history of this rivalry, yeah, I'll take that every day because we saw what Michael Parsons has done against the Eagles.
Yeah, Lane, baby.
Every month.
Yeah.
And the only thing
Johnson, it's a Lane Johnson week because Micah is unblockable against everybody else.
Yeah, and you got, and the only thing that worries me about that is a lot of times that matchup last year, the first one, they played Micah. They had Micah play in space with the zone read, but Jalen Hurts' leg is not 100%, and they're running that, so he may have to tweak that a little bit. And if he does that, I think that's the only way you really come back at it. But yeah, I'll take the Eagles 11 over that 11.
All right, I'm going to give you another prediction here, Chris, and I won't make you pick the game because it's only Wednesday, and that's not fair. At least I don't think so. Ask somebody to make a pick on Wednesday before we get our first estimated injury report or anything else. So
here's the big estimation today. Estimation.
Yeah,
walkthroughs on Dallas week. That's good. Here's the estimation I need from you because since John went to Michael Parsons, I'm going there too. He said on his podcast this week.
Everybody's got a podcast.
Yes, he does. Cowboy Nation, we need you at Lincoln Financial Field. We know they're a pretty good traveling fan base. They've got fans all over the country, blah, 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 blah. Not as good as the Philadelphia Eagle fan base. But what do you think the percentage is of Cowboy fans at Lincoln Financial Field? Because Michael Parsons threw down the gauntlet and said, we can get enough Cowboy fans into Philadelphia behind enemy lines. Come on, Cowboy Nation, show up loud and proud in Philadelphia. How many Cowboy fans are actually going to get into the building on Sunday? I ask John this every week when it's a road game. What was the percentage of Eagles fans? Because it's amazing what the Eagle fans do on the road between Eagle fan and home fan. What's going to be the percentage of Cowboy fans on Sunday, Chris Franklin?
Last year or home game, I remember seeing a couple smatterings of blue around there. I still think if anything, it's going to be like 10 to 15%, if that. Because, the Eagles, Cowboys, no Eagles fan. Every Eagles fan, this is one game people try to sell tickets like, let me get a ticket for that. No, I'm not selling this game. I want to go to that one. So, they're not, that whole takeover thing.
Can't take over Lincoln Financial Field.
Yeah.
But
you can
only take over if the opposition fans allow you. But how I described it to Jody is there will be more Cowboy fans than any other visiting team this year. Which won't be a lot, but there will be a smattering of Cowboy fans, and I mean, they have a big following. There's no use denying it. But I'll end it here with you at C Franklin News. Make sure you follow Chris on Twitter or X or whatever you like to call it these days. NJ.com. Read them all over the place. Does a tremendous job. We'll go back to the trade deadline because that's the big story of the week. And the Eagles also got rid of Kentavious Street. We talk about that now. Not a big deal, but they have tremendous depth on the defensive front. Moving forward, do you think they want to get Moro Ajomo more reps? They definitely want to get Nolan Smith more reps. How do you feel about that? Is that, this is a Super Bowl team versus development. Do you put development off to the side? There's no harm in redshirting people. They're redshirting Ringo except for special teams. What's the big deal?
I think they may give him the couple of snaps, like the Marlin snaps, but I still think it's more of a, hey, you know what? It gives you more opportunity to use Jalen Carter and stuff like that, because or more Jalen Carter and Milton Williams, because what was he at, like 20 with Kentavious had like 22, something like that.
He played a lot. He had 22 against Washington. He had 23 against the Jets because of injuries. I mean, Jalen was hurt, and then it was Jalen and Jordan. So he played when guys were hurt. Would the same thing hold true with Morrow if somebody's banged up? If Fletcher's banged, that was the Fletcher game, I guess, the Jets game where Fletcher missed. If somebody's banged up, would they just up those Milton snaps, up those Carter snaps, up those Davis snaps, or is he taking that Kentavious role?
I think they just increase the snaps a little bit, because I think they got a good thing going right now when it comes to that rotation. And you still have Marlon in the background in case you really need him. And because that Marlon, I think he did a decent job for most of training camp. But I look at what you have right now and what you got going with that line. I think they're just humming right now. I think you still stick with those guys. And I've been wanting to see Jalen Carter get more snaps, because I think he can be more of an impact. I know they want to keep everybody fresh, but I think he's that impactful that he can disrupt him. So I want to give him more playing time, more snaps.
Jalen Carter's good. Breaking news.
By the way, I just got a text, and it's completely acceptable because it's not halftime of the game. It was Moro Jomo said, "Tell Franklin I'm playing this week." Forget about it. Moro texted me and said, "You're just woefully wrong." All right, and you know what? I'm disagreeing with John too. What else is new? There will be another game where there'll be more fans in the stands. That'll be week 17. When Marcus Mariota is scheduled to start for the Eagles against the Arizona Cardinals, because the Eagles have already locked up everything in the NFC. Oh, no, wait. That's a chance to boo Jonathan Gannon. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I said more opposition fans. That's what
right. I'm saying more Cardinal fans because
they want to.
Eagles
they
would be willing
love
to give
John.
up their
They
tickets
love
because they don't want to see Marcus Mariota play quarterback.
They love JG out there. They think he's doing a good job. That's a very bad team, and they're competing. And that's all you can ask for. The big Josh Dobbs trade too. That's a blockbuster, huh?
I think the only way I think that really does that is you hope that he's good enough that when the Vikings play him, like almost a similar situation where the Giants play him, that he knocks off the Lions, one of those two. Because I think it goes to week 18. I think everything's decided then. Because the line between the Lions and the Eagles and maybe the 49ers.
Yeah, maybe the Lions.
I'm concerned about the Lions, Chris, because they get to play the Vikings twice with Jaron Hall or Josh Dobbs or Nick Mullins or Chris Franklin.
I'm retired in my arms.
Hey, man.
But when Montez Sweat drives Jared Goff into the ground for those Chicago Bears,
that's true.
Be careful.
I'm going to say they beat Tyson Badgett. What's his name? I always get it wrong.
Tyson Badgett. You're correct.
Tyson Badgett. Yeah. I'm going to say they beat him.
There's a good chance Justin Fields is back this week. So, and by the way, check Justin's number. He hasn't been that bad. I know they haven't won any damn games, but Justin.
No, he's been better. He's been much better this year. He's been much better
because they actually went out and got him a wide receiver who can play. Try and do more of that in Chicago. All right, Franklin, we're running late. Thank you very much for jumping in. You know we love you. Read him at NJ.com. Does an outstanding job for that publication following the Birds day in, day out. Chris Franklin here with us on Birds 365. All right, quickie timeout. Come back. Got to put a bow on the show. Stay right there.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Running late today. Both of our guests were very good. We ran late with them. Apologize. And we got to get out of the way before Bill Colarulo comes along with the Philly Sports Power Hour. So I need one more prediction out of you, McMullen. I made everybody else make prediction. I need one out of you. Pretty damn simplistic. Yay or nay, Cam Jurgens' practice or walkthrough window opens up today? They open up his practice.
I'm going to go yay. Cam Jurgens. They might.
And if he is, he's playing Sunday, right?
I would think so. I've seen him in the locker room past 2 weeks. He seems ready to go. I think he's going to start Sunday. They're not going to admit it, obviously.
Right.
But I would be shocked if they might not start it today because it's a walkthrough, but I think they will. They might kick it back a day. EJ Jenkins
been out for 4 weeks and wait all the way till Thursday to open up his practice window.
No, but they'll open it today. I'm just saying there's a slight chance because it's a walkthrough, but they'll want him involved in the walkthrough.
They should
as well.
And I think it's cut and dry. If he practices, he plays Sunday. If he doesn't, you're saying you think there's a chance that they could activate it Thursday. I don't buy that. I believe today's the decision day.
EJ Jenkins, former Jets tight end, to the practice squad. There's your big splashy move.
They need another tight end?
Practice squad. Practice squad churn. So Eagles fans can get excited about that. And
all right, now you forced me to make one more question. Over under catches this year for the tight end that they picked up from the Broncos. I can't even think of his damn name.
Alberto.
One half. Over
I'm
under.
going to go over. Grant
He's going to get a catch on that week 19 game that the Eagles will be able to take off. It's going to be a big Alberto
Remember, Grant Calcaterra's in the concussion protocol, and he's got a troubling history of concussions. Actually retired from college.
You're right. Thank you for reminding me. That makes sense. That's why they added
he might get some time. Somebody's going to get banged up at some point. He'll catch a pass. I'm going. You made that one easy for me. Now, if you want to 3, I might have a different.
You have to think about it. Yeah. All right, I'll have more tough questions for McMullen tomorrow if he comes back. You coming back tomorrow?
Yeah, planning on it.
Right,
walkthrough. You never know. Something tweaked in the walkthrough. You never know
what the walkthrough delivers. Can't believe they're walking through on Dallas week. But anyway. He'll be back. I'll be back. That means Mac and Mac Birds 365 returns in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.